Classification of constitution. Often we would classify constitutions to be either unitary or federal, or it may be on the nature of the procedure for amending the constitution. Then we would classify them to be either rigid or flexible. It may be on the basis as to whether the rules of constitutional law are contained in a single document or not. Then we would classify the Constitution into written or unwritten. Or it may be on the relation between the legislature and the judiciary. Then we would classify constitutions of those which accommodate the principle of parliamentary sovereignty or those which contain the principle of judicial supremacy. We might classify on the nature of the executive. The executive may be either parliamentary or presidential. Federal and unitary constitution. This classification is based on the principle by which the powers of government are distributed in the constitution between the central government and the constituent governments established for its constituent parts. Under a federal constitution, there is a scheme of distribution of power between the central and the local units, which are to a certain extent independent within their own territorial limits. The central government has its own sphere of operation of its laws, while the federating units are governed by their own laws. No one is subordinate nor acts as an agent of the other. That is, both are coordinate. For example, the Constitution of Switzerland, Australia. In the unitary constitution, the legislature of the whole country is the supreme lawmaking body, which may permit other legislatures to exist subordinate to it. Sweden, New Zealand, France have unitary constitutions. Flexible and rigid constitutions as to possibility of changing it. A flexible constitution is one under which every law of every description can legally be changed with the same ease and in the same manner by one and the same body, while a rigid constitution is one under which certain laws, generally known as constitutional or fundamental laws, cannot be changed in the same manner as ordinary laws. As to fundamental and ordinary laws, in a rigid constitution, there is a distinction between fundamental and ordinary laws. The fundamental or constitutional laws are laws which deal with the framework of the Constitution, and these cannot be changed or amended in the ordinary process of lawmaking. In other words, a rigid constitution is one which is founded on fundamental written laws. A flexible constitution is one in which all laws can be altered by the same machinery. The English constitution is flexible. Any constitutional law, as for example the law governing the succession to the throne, can be and has been altered by Parliament by the ordinary legislative process. The American Constitution is rigid. Changes in the Constitution can be effected only by the motion of two-thirds of each House of Congress with the ratification of the legislature of three-fourths of the states comprising the Union. As to the sovereignty of the legislature, in a rigid constitution, the legislature is a non-sovereign lawmaking body, its powers being defined by the fundamental law embodied in the Constitution, which it cannot alter. In a flexible constitution, on the other hand, the legislature is sovereign inasmuch as it has the power of making, altering, or repealing laws of any description, including the Constitution itself. It is a legislative as well as a constituent body. As to power of courts to pronounce on validity etc. of laws, in a rigid constitution, laws passed by the legislature may be declared ultra vires or invalid by the courts if they are repugnant to the constitutional laws. In a flexible constitution, there is no authority, judicial or otherwise, which can declare laws passed by the legislature as ultra vires or unconstitutional. Thus, in the USA, if an act of the Congress contravenes any provisions of the federal Constitution, the Supreme Court may declare it as ultra vires. In England, no court possesses any power to question the validity of an Act of Parliament.